Hello, everyone. We are back. So, More Than Magic has been on a 3 month hiatus. The production team and myself have been busy with all sorts of other endeavors, but I'm really happy to be back today, and I am just thrilled that we have a very important guest. So, a couple of months ago, someone pointed out to me that we have a Black or African American mayor of Live Oak, which is a city adjacent to San Antonio. And so when I heard that, I knew that I had to find her, and so I sent an email, and she is with us here in the studio today. So I would like to introduce everyone to Mayor Mary Dennis. Hi.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. It's wonderful to know that someone who has so many things to do would actually carve out time in their schedule to come visit with us. So we really appreciate you being here. And you literally just came from an event this morning.
Yes, actually 2 events. It's been a busy day, but I don't call it busy anymore. It's just my life, and I enjoy every minute of it.
Yes, yes. Well, your lovely, I guess your executive assistant, Issa, was kind enough to send over your bio. And it was packed with so much. And I read through it and I said, okay, I'm just going to have to save all of this for the show. But before we get into the depth of the interview, one of the kind of traditions that we have here at the show is I ask everyone about their name. And I'm curious, your name is not uncommon necessarily, but I'm curious to know if you were named after someone in your family or if it was more of a biblical reference, or I think it's important to honor people's names and where they come from. So would you share?
Well, I appreciate the question. I think people's names are important, so thank you for asking. Well, actually, I was named after my mom. Her name is Mary, and many people might remember her as Flowers by Mary on WWI for many, many years.
Goodness.
And so that's why people that really know me call me Little Mary, because mom is always Big Mary. And so it's a joke we have between each other. I was like, Mom, okay, I'm still Little Mary. She said, oh, yes, you're still Little Mary. Forever. And so I'm very proud of my name. And my mom was named after one of her aunts, Mary. And so I'm very proud of my name. I own my name.
Yes.
People always tell me that. My daughter, in fact, she wanted to name her daughter Mary. Mm-hmm. She calls me and she says, Mom, will it be okay if we name her Mary? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, yes, I guess so. Yeah. So my granddaughter, her middle name is Mary. So she's named after me. But we are very proud of her name, and I love my name. I know it's a very old-fashioned name, and maybe many might say, but I love my name and I own it so very much.
Yes, that's beautiful. So there's now 4 Marys in your family.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
it is.
Well, and it's such a small world. I didn't know that. Actually, that's not true. I did see that in the bio, in the short form one that she sent me. I do remember seeing that now. So what I'm hearing and understanding is that you grew up with a mother who was a strong model for womanhood.
Oh, for sure. So many wonderful women that have been in my life that I've been blessed by. My mom, of course, my grandmother, my mother-in-law, just so many wonderful Black women that have sowed into my life. And I feel like now I'm reaping many of those benefits.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So, you have little Mary running around, seeing your mother run this floral shop. Did you ever think that you might follow into her footsteps and become a florist?
Definitely not. If you would have seen any of my artistic florals, you would have said, no way.
Okay, that was...
And my mom agreed totally. But what I was really good at was helping the customers, taking care of the customers, placing orders, dealing with the vendors. I was very good at that. So she let me be strong in that area. And she had a really good designer, and she herself a very good designer. So I never had to worry about that.
So you always knew that you were a people person.
I have. I really have. In fact, I've known since I was 9 years old. My dad was in the military, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about.
Yes.
We were in North Carolina. He was stationed at Fort Bragg, and we lived in Spring Lake, North Carolina. And I remember the day so vividly. I was playing with my Barbie dolls, just kind of having fun there, with my Barbie dolls playing. And something comes over me, a feeling that I couldn't explain at the time, but it was like just something that I could feel. I really could, because I remember it so vividly. And it was like, your life will be about service to others. And of course, at 9 years old, I had no idea what that meant. But I remember that day. I remember that moment, and always held on to that. Is that your life will be about service to others. And no matter where I've been in my life, serving, working, it's always been about people.
Right, right. So we're talking about, your father being stationed in North Carolina. How would you say growing up in the military environment as a, dependent of an enlisted member, how do you think that shaped part of maybe your personality or the things that you were drawn to throughout your life?
I think it played a big part. I was born in Mississippi in a very small town, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later also. But I think being in the military, moving around every 3 years, really, really prepared me for wherever you are, you have to be friends and make friends where you are. And so every 3 years, we were moving to a new school, to a new neighborhood, to a new city. So I think that kind of prepared me that I never meet a stranger. So wherever I am, I'm going to make myself friendly, and I'm going to make the best of wherever I am. So I think that has really bode well for me in what I'm doing today.
Yeah. Now, you grew up in Mississippi, and I love that. So right before the show, I love that we had a moment. You were like, do you want some hand cream? And I was like, yes, ma'am, I do. And you said very proudly, I'm from Mississippi, and, I have my cream. And even before the show, I was like putting lotion on my legs, we take special pride in like being moisturized. It's a thing. It's a very real thing. How old were you when you all left Mississippi?
I was probably about 3 years old when we left, and my dad was in the military, as they said, so he traveled all over the country, all over the world, and so I wasn't there. But when we were in the States, we'd always spend the summers with my grandparents in Mississippi. So they load up the station wagon that day after school was out, and we'd go and stay there until after Labor Day, because school used to not start until after Labor in September. So we spend the summers there in the small town of Decatur, Mississippi, and the other set of grandparents lived about 7 miles away in Newton, Mississippi. But that was an experience too, because it was the South during the 60s and early 70s. So it was also something else, I believe, that helped prepare me for life, because we weren't allowed to go into the restaurants unless we went in the back. We weren't allowed to go into the movie theater unless we sat upstairs. We went to the doctor. There were 2 separate sides to see the doctor. So it was that type of environment. However, my grandfather was very well respected in that town. And so we'd go in the store, and they were, oh, you're Wardell's granddaughter, and we could get whatever candy we wanted, and he would just, we charge it to our grandfather. But it was, in some ways, it helped strengthen me to understand that there is that difference sometimes. Well, not sometimes, but in life, it really was a reality. But I think it was how do you approach it? Because I never looked at it as a negative. I just looked at something to make me stronger.
Right. I would love to talk to you a little bit more about that, because there seems to be a narrative that, those days were so long ago. And I've literally told people before, that was like one mother ago for me. Like, my mother grew up at a time where she vividly remembers having rocks thrown at her, being in certain environments within school where, she thought she had an advocate and a teacher, and she didn't. And it did. I know that it made my mother stronger. How do you think that shaped your ability to be, I don't want to say a politician, but you're in the political arena. Like, politician sounds so like limiting.
Oh, I detest that word.
Yeah, and that's why as I was about to say it, I'm like, that's not the right word.
No, I
but to be a public servant.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you. No, I think that's another story, but we'll save that for another time. But I think how it helped shape me, because it really wasn't that long ago, because my daughter now, she's 43. I remember we were there one summer, and she got sick, and I had to take her to the doctor, and we were on the side, and the nurse hesitated when I said to her, where's the restroom? Well, she sent me into a room that said restroom, and it was dark. There was no paper towels, and just not well kept. As I came out of that room, I saw a sign that said ladies, and I walked over there, and it was a lot different. So I said to my cousins, why are we doing this? They said, because this is the way we've always done it. And so it wasn't that long ago. It was not that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember too, one Saturday, my grandfather gives us money to go downtown. We would call it Uptown on a Saturday to go there to the movie theater in Newton, Mississippi. It's the Roxy Theater. I was just there a couple weeks ago because I wanted to show my grandkids where it was. Well, we were there and we went upstairs with all of the other black kids. And I was looking out over the balcony and there were the white kids sitting in the bottom. So I go back down and I say to the doorman, I want to sit down there. He says, little girl, just go back upstairs and be quiet. I says, no, I want to sit there. He said, well, it costs more money. Well, I had enough money to give whatever the difference was, and he let me go in. Well, no one said anything to me. The kids just kind of turned around and looked at me. And so I was just there watching the movie, and after a while, to my surprise, many of my other cousins had come in, and other black kids started coming in to sit down. So my family teases me that I was the one who integrated the Roxy Theater in Newton, Mississippi. But I was just used to, in the military, there was not that separation. So I knew the difference when I would go there in the summers. I knew that it was not what I thought was right, but I knew it was the way that it was there. Because I would say to Mom, I want to go skating. I want to go to the skating ring. And she was like, you can't go. And finally she said, you can't go because you're black. It's only for the white kids. And I thought we had, when we're on the base, we go to the theater, we go to the skating ring and everything else. But there, it was an unwritten rule that it was separated because that was just the way that it was and had always been that way.
Yeah. Wow. We were just talking earlier about you not using social media, but someone posted something recently and it was like a meme and it said, you're in the military when you have, your black friend is dancing cha-cha to like Puerto Rican music, but the cook is Greek and and it just spoke about the culture of truly being like a melting pot where everyone's, in the same space. And it doesn't necessarily mean everyone's best friends, but there's like a level of respect and acceptance that doesn't always trickle to the outside world.
Unfortunately, it doesn't, but you're absolutely right because where you are, there are people from all over the world and you're there getting along because you have to. You're in this space for a set amount of time and so you learn to appreciate, learn to celebrate, and I always say that I believe we should celebrate the differences. Make them there. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing. We don't all have to be the same. I think the world would be a very boring place if everybody were like me. So I love the differences. You can learn so much from others just by being exposed to different ideas, different cultures, and different foods. And so it's a good thing.
Especially the food.
Oh, especially the food.
I love to eat food. But
I hope we talk about that too.
Yes. Well, I have a good friend. She's in Spain right now. Her name is Tamara, and she is a flamenco dancer. And I always joke because, she's Jewish. She dances flamenco. My favorite restaurant is a Nigerian restaurant on Walsham. And so, I go there with her, and then we drove to Austin one day just to go eat Ethiopian food. And so we're bonding as friends, but also having another extension of our relationship through food. And that is a really important way to meet people where they are and to learn. But I like that you said it's okay to see the differences. We were talking about this before the show. I'm very unapologetic about, more than magic, speaking to the magic nature of Black women. Yes. And so this space is reserved for us. And I'm wondering if you have ever encountered, personally or throughout your professional career, people who are afraid to acknowledge that you are a Black woman, where they would just rather sort of not see you in your totality, and how you deal with that, if you've had to at all.
Well, I appreciate the question, and I've had it before, and I've really had to think about it, but I can honestly say I have not. I don't know or could explain. If it happened, I didn't know. I was totally naive to it. But no, I haven't, because every room that I walk into that room as if I own it.
There you go.
And so
You're they're going to see me.
Yes, and exactly. Yeah. And I make sure that I'm prepared for whatever meeting I need to go to. In fact, there's a saying amongst my colleagues that if you don't want her to know, don't give it to her because she will read it. And so I read everything they give me, so I make sure that I walk into the meeting as prepared as I could be. I try to ask intelligent questions, always thinking about the people who cannot be in the room. But I have to say I've not experienced it. If I have, I haven't known about it.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's
so
a good thing.
That's been my experience thus far.
So were you ever, so growing up, in a military environment and traveling all over the world, did you ever think that you would go into the service yourself? Did you ever toy with that idea?
I did not, because I was a mama's girl and I was never going to be very far from my mom. I'm very proud of my sister Veronica. She joined the Air Force, had a wonderful 20-year career, and did really well. But I never wanted to be far away from my mom.
Right.
I live maybe 20 minutes from her right
Yeah.
now. So no,
Yeah.
I just always wanted to be close to my mom. I never wanted to be too far from her.
Yeah.
And even at this age of my life, we're still pretty close. So I can get to her in about 30 minutes.
No, that's important. You know,
Yeah.
our relationship with our mother, that's like our first relationship ever. And in a lot of
Yes.
ways, it models all of the other relationships that we have in our lives. There's so much richness there. So that's beautiful to hear, because a lot of people don't have that. The relationships are strained or maybe even non-existent. So that's actually really beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think so too. But I have to say that in many ways, I wish that I would have been a little bit more adventurous. But I wasn't for whatever reasons. But I do think, so I push my daughter to be just the opposite of me in that respect. So she is very adventurous. She comes to me one day and she says, Mom, I'm moving to Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh.
And I said, why? She said, just because I want to. And she said, if not now, Mom, when? So I had no answer to come back to say that, because that's the way I really raised her. So I'm very proud of her. So she's far away from me,
Wow.
but I can get there in 2 hours on a flight. So,
Right,
but it's
right.
good. But I'm very proud that she is adventurous, something that I was always afraid to be in many ways. But I'm coming out of it. I'm coming out of it.
Well, and you mentioned before the show, you were saying that you really were kind of more, like you just kind of stayed at home for a long time. What prompted you to sort of begin to come out of your shell?
Very good question. I was a very happy stay-at-home mom. I really loved my life. My daughter would say, Mom, what did you want to be? I said, I wanted to be a wife and a mom. That was really what my goal was. So I was very happy and very fortunate that my husband loved for me to be able to do that. So I was able to stay home. But after Christina graduated from high school, I began to say, I have a lot of time. What am I going to do? And it was really during that time that I really kind of discovered myself, kind of discovered the woman that I am, the things that I like to do for myself. So I was just kind of discovering what I wanted to do. And so a neighbor's walking by my house one day, and she's like, we're going to a protest. We want you to go. Like, yes.
Well, that's baptism by fire.
Exactly. And my husband comes home and is, what are you doing? The sign in the yard. I said, oh, I'm protesting.
Wow.
So that was kind of like my first kind of out there moment. And I remember they wanted to close Sam Houston High School here in San Antonio. And so I was out, I was like, oh no. So I was there testifying and advocating for that school to remain open. So that was kind of like my first kind of taste of like, I really like being able to have a voice and to be able to hopefully make a difference, because there were many people who couldn't come to those meetings because they were at work or taking care of their kids, and I was able to be there. So I've always felt like I get to be the voice in the room for the people that are not able to be here.
So that actually answers another question, because I was going to ask you what prompted you to want to go into public service, and if it was something that you thought that you wanted to do as a little girl, because we knew that florist, you said that wasn't in the card for you. Didn't want to go into the military, had no desire to do that, but that you were bitten by that bug as an adult. So what was the jumping point or the catalyst for you to actually go into public service, and where did you begin?
Well, a very interesting story. We moved to a house 27 years ago, and we buy a house on a street that is unpaved. It's a gravel road. And I was like, I really liked the gravel road because it reminded me of my grandma's house in Mississippi.
Yes.
Well, my neighbor says to me, first day, ma'am, as soon as you get unpacked, we're going down to City Hall to see about getting this road paved. Well, I didn't want to say no because I just met him. So I was like, yes, sir, I'll be ready first thing tomorrow morning. So we go down to City Hall and we see about getting the road paved. And I'm actually fascinated by the platting process and all of the things that it takes to get the road paved. Well, while I'm there, someone says, well, we've got an opening on our Planning and Zoning Commission. Would you care to serve? And I was like, well, yes, my daughter was just about done with high school, so I was sure I've got time. I'll give it a try. So I did that, learned everything that I could about planning and zoning. I always encourage people, if you're interested in public policies, Planning and Zoning Commission is a good place to start. Yes, because you'll know everything. The action is that's coming for the future.
Yes.
So I did that for a couple of years, and later someone said, well, we've got an opening on the council. Would you care to run? And I was like, sure, I've never run for a public office, but I'll give it a try. So I went out, knocked on doors, and I have to tell you, I said to myself, if the first door that I knock on and they're mean to me, I'm not going to knock on another door.
Right.
Knock on the first door, and the family is so nice, they invite me in. I spent about an hour at their kitchen table.
Yeah.
And then I finished my knocking on doors. Well, that evening after the election, my team runs in, and like, Mary, you've lost by 25 votes. Well, I thought that was pretty good, first time out. So I was really content, went home. About 9 months later, a council person resigned, and I was appointed to finish off that term. They're just 2-year terms. So the end of that term, and then they said, well, we got an opening. Would you care to run again? So I run again. This time my team runs in, and they're like, Mary, you've lost by 2 votes. My mother was livid. She's like, we're going to have a recount. I was like, Mom, we're not going to pay for a recount. This is a non-paying job.
Right.
So anyway, true story, they have 1 or 2 meetings. A council person resigns, and I'm appointed again now to finish off the rest of that 24-month term. So I think I'm done with this little sprint of my life, and my daughter calls me, and she says, Mom, I think you should be the mayor of Live Oak. And I said, Christine, I think you're crazy. I have no idea what the mayor of Live Oak does. I don't think so.
Right.
Well, anyway, I run for mayor, and I get out again, knock on doors. My team runs in after the polls have closed, and they're like, Mary, you're not going to believe this. By now, I'm prepared for whatever.
Right.
They say it is a tie. We've never had a tie in the history of Live Oak, but it is a tie. So I'm fine. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for the tie. So my opponent says to me, well, this is Texas, and it is legal on the books. We can flip a coin to decide the race.
What?
And this is really, go look it up. It's really there.
Texas.
And so I said, well, sir, I'm from Mississippi. I don't know anything about flipping a coin. We're going to have a runoff. So we had the runoff, and I was successful. And that was in 2010, and that was my first term as mayor. One other time, right after that, 2 years later, I have to run again, and one of the council member runs against me. And this time, my team runs in, and they're so excited. And they're like, Mary, we've won by 72% of the vote.
Wow.
And so that's actually the last election that I've had. I've not had any opponents. People come, but they always change their mind at the last minute. Wow. So no one's run against me since then. So I've been now mayor since 2010. So I have two things I like to say to that is that if something is for you, you don't give up on your dream. Even though you may not know the details or how it's going to work out, you never give up on your dream. And the other thing is that you keep the faith no matter what's going on. You never lose faith in yourself or your abilities to do whatever it is that you're going to be doing.
Right. As I was listening to you tell this story, well, first of all, the coin flipping thing is news to me, but this being Texas, it kind of makes sense.
Yes, this is Texas now.
But also, I like the expression that, what's for you is for you.
Exactly.
So even though you may not have mapped that out, since you were 10 years old, the way some people do, they're like, I want to do this or that. But things are sort of moving in your favor, someone resigning not once, but twice. Yeah. And the fact that no one has contested or run against you, I think that the people are happy, I would say.
Well, I certainly hope so. Yeah. I'm happy serving. I'm very proud of our city. We were established in 1960, and the myth is there were 8 families got together because it was a farming community. They got together and they said, we don't want to be swallowed up by San Antonio. So they get their little pennies together and went to Austin and had this city incorporated in 1960. So we're a fairly young city, but still very right there. Only 5.5 square miles, about 15,000 residents, but a very strong piece of the Northeast area.
Yes. And it's grown a lot.
Yes, in a good way. I think.
Yes,
because we've got so many great things, so many opportunities.
Well, and I was saying earlier that it really does feel when you're in Live Oak, you don't feel like you're in San Antonio. So those families were successful because it's, you can be in San Antonio in a matter of minutes, but it's still very much preserved that like peaceful, idyllic, calm, kind of tranquil feeling.
It is, and
Yeah.
we're very proud of that, because even though we're surrounded by I-35, Loop 1604, the most traveled interstate in the
It's
country,
insane.
that is still, when you're there, you really feel as if that hometown feeling.
Yeah.
Neighbors are out. It's a very friendly community. We do a lot of community events. I'm always big on anything outdoors with families.
Yes.
So my staff is like, we're doing too many things. I was like, no,
Never.
let's do more. Let's do more.
Yes.
And so we really focus on the families. And so to me, that's important, because if families are whole, feeling good about themselves, then they're out taking care of their neighbors, they're out eating, and they're out shopping, and everybody's doing well. I know maybe sounds a bit idyllic, but I really believe in the family. So yeah, I really support that 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever, so you're a history maker. And even though Live Oak is a relatively young city, it's still a city, it's incorporated, and you are the first Black woman mayor. How does that feel to you? Do you ever think about it? How does it land when, like even now when I'm bringing it up, how does it feel to hear that? Like you're part of history, because you'll never not be the first Black, like you're always going to be the first Black woman mayor. So how does that feel?
Well, when I hear it, it does sound a little bit overwhelming to me,
Right.
in a sense of like, oh my goodness. However, I really don't think about it, because my dad always said to me, if I remember we were sitting at the kitchen table, because in our house back in the day, being at the dinner table was not even an option. You had to be home. No matter what you were
Right.
doing, we'd have to be home for dinner. And he would go around to each of us, the 5 kids, and he would say, what did you learn today? What did you learn today? And if he got to you and he said, what did you learn today? And you're like, Dad, I didn't learn anything today. He's like, how could you go all day and not learn anything? So, of course, that next night you were going to be prepared. And one night he said to me, you have 2 things against you. I was like, Daddy, what? What do I have against me? He says, you're Black and you're female. He said, but all it means is that you have to work harder and you have to be smarter. So I've taken that approach to whatever my assignment has been, is that I'm going to work hard and I'm probably going to be very smart in whatever
Right.
the assignment is. And so I've always taken those things to heart, no matter, what I've been doing. And so I don't really look at it so much as being the first whatever, because I want there to be others. I want there to be others that follow along. My team actually did some research that they found out I was the first Black female mayor in Bexar County. There was a Black man mayor in Helotes many years ago, but actually the first Black female in Bexar County. So I was like, wow, that's something.
No, it's
But
huge.
I'm thankful for the opportunity, and I'm humbled by this place that I've been able to serve in. But I want others to come along and just say, we're there too.
And there will be. There will
Yes,
be,
I
because
do believe that.
sometimes when we listen and we do what we're supposed to be doing, we're on our path. Sometimes just by doing that, even if you're not actively recruiting people to say, hey, I want you to do this or that, or I'm trying to do this to set an example, someone is always watching.
I believe that
Always.
with all of my heart. Sometimes when we don't want them to do.
Exactly.
But people are watching, and I've
Yes.
so many. And I always try to encourage. I always feel like I'm the older woman in the group now, so I try to encourage the young women. Be all that you can be, learn all that you can. Take care of yourself. We talked a little bit about that before the show started, is that you are the most important person. I know that we are committed to take care of others, and that's nothing wrong with that, but you are the most important person. So I just encourage all women to take care of yourself first, because without you won't be able to do the great things that you need to do.
Absolutely. I would actually like to delve into that a bit further,
Sure.
because you do a lot, and you have done a lot. You serve on numerous boards. You're very involved in the community, even outside of Live Oak.
Oh,
You're
certainly.
involved. So what are some of the other things that you spend your time doing, or giving your energy to, aside from being mayor? This is gonna blow people's minds, even if you just name 3. It's like, how does she do all of that?
I know people ask me all the time, and the craziest thing is I don't feel busy. I don't feel overwhelmed. So I try to find balance. That's my new favorite word. So with all of the things I do, I just think about always, how do I balance this out? Getting time to take a nap, to just sit down, Today I had a very busy morning, but I took 2 hours to take some time to sit on my patio and just chill, listen to
Right.
some music, watch the birds, and then prepared for coming here this evening. But I just think that that's very important. But some of the things that I've been blessed to do is I serve on the National League of Cities, which is an international organization. I sit on the board of directors. It represents over 2,600 cities, towns, and countries here in the United States and abroad. And so that's been very exciting.
Yes.
And so my thing is that you don't have to say my name, but you do have to say the city of Live Oak. So wherever I am, I'm always making sure people know and recognize the city of Live Oak.
Right.
I've sat on the CPS Energy Board for a number of
that,
years.
yes.
Yeah, for 6 years. I only got kicked off because I termed out. But again, being in the room, making sure those people that can't be in the room because they're working, taking care of their children and their families, making sure that they're thought about and decisions that are made about utilities and things like that. So just so many other wonderful boards. I never asked to be on these things. People have just sought me out, but I'm honored that they have.
But that is probably the best way to serve when you're not actively campaigning, when people think of your name and they're like, she would be good. It's a vote of confidence in you. Your name is being spoken in rooms that you're not in, and that's how I think that's the absolute best way to serve in that capacity, because then you know that you're actually doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate your saying that, but I'm terribly humbled and honored to be able to serve. And again, I never would have imagined this in 1,000 years, but I'm blessed to be in this place of service, a place of service.
Right. So if there, and I'm sure there will be eventually, I don't know how many live years we have in the moment, but if there's a young woman watching this, let's say she's in college and she has aspirations to go into public service, whether it be a council member, a mayor, maybe she even wants to be president one day. What advice would you give to a young woman specifically, and even more specifically, a young Black woman? What are some things that you think she can do now in her youth to prepare her for that path?
I think one of the things that I would say is that use your voice. You have a voice, use it. You don't have to be mean or ugly, but your voice ought to be heard. Your voice is important. And so don't be afraid to use your voice. Be confident in yourself, not cocky, but confident in your abilities, confident that you are a good human being and that you have something to offer. And what you have is important. And so I think prepare yourself. I always say study as much as you can, learn as much as you can, ask as many questions as you can. Most people, they like it when you ask questions because they feel really glad to be able to answer those. So it's nothing wrong with asking questions. It's nothing wrong with not knowing. If you don't know, ask. So I think using your voice, being confident in yourself, knowing that you have something to offer, that you are here on purpose. The reason that you are in this earth plane is for purpose. Find out what that purpose is. And it may not be grand but it is important. It matters because your toe is just as important as your foot. So just know that what you have to offer the world is important and somebody needs it. So it's important that you live out the purpose for which you were called to build, to do in this earth plane.
Indeed, indeed. So how would you say you found your personal voice? Because it's one thing to sort of, be appointed to a position and to win an election. But then obviously there are things that you're very passionate about in that position. And there are things that you advocate for. And maybe people agree most of the time, maybe they don't. How do you find the fortitude within to say, this is something that I stand for, this is something that's important to me, and then really stand on it? How do you navigate that?
Very good question. I believe, again, back to believing in yourself and knowing what you have is important. I was serving on a board here in San Antonio, and I was like, how are we getting information to people that need these resources? And they said, well, we have it online, and they could go online. I said, but we're talking about people who don't have internet. So how then will they know this? And they said, well, we have some material, but it's only in English. I said, well, we need to have it in Spanish. We're serving a community that does need it in Spanish. And they said, we just never thought about that. So now their materials are in print in Spanish and in English, so that those who really need those resources, that it can be available to them. So I think just going in there with the compassion, always knowing that it's not about you. I remind myself about that every day, is think not more of yourself than you ought. Doesn't mean that you don't have confidence in yourself, but you don't get the big head about it. Thinking, knowing that you are there for a reason bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
So I think keeping that in mind is always so important.
Yeah, that's actually really refreshing to hear from a public servant, because I know that in certain positions, it can be tempting at times to make it about oneself. But you've repeatedly said over the course of this interview thus far that it's bigger than you. It's about, you know, your purpose and what you're here to do. So how do I frame this question? Is there anything in the future that you would like to see for your city that hasn't come to fruition yet? Is there anything specific that you know, during your term as mayor, like, I want this to be my legacy? Do you have like a, or maybe it is and you can't talk about it. I don't know.
No. I appreciate the question, but I have to tell you, I had those goals when I first came that I set for myself, and I've actually met them all.
Yes. We love it.
Yes. So now I think just keeping good professional cohesiveness with the council. We've got a great council, a wonderful city manager, Glenn Martell, who's leading the, you know, does the day-to-day operations of the city. So we're really in a good place. So just now, I think maintaining that.
Yes.
We have very limited land space, so making good use of the land space that we have. Always thinking about the future. I say all the time to my council members and staff, we have to think beyond ourselves. So we have to think 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, how is this going to affect the people that will be here using these sources? So I think that, and always with the budget, because I'm the numbers girl, so I'm always watching the budget, because at the end of the day, it's about the money. You need money to be able to carry out the projects, but the money comes from the residents who have to pay taxes.
Right.
So I'm always very conscientious of that.
I know they're happy to hear that. I know they're delighted, because that's one thing people are always concerned about, like, where's our tax money going?
Exactly.
No matter what community you're in, that is a topic of conversation. Like,
right,
always.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, you said you're a numbers girl.
Yes.
But I have a feeling that you also are an avid reader. That's just something that I just gleaned from our conversation, just a few things that you've said. What do you read in your off time? This has nothing to do with your
right. Whenever that is,
yeah.
And I do read a lot. My council teases me about the budget book because it's like 500 pages, but I can tell them what page to turn to for whatever. Right. But when I'm not, I do enjoy reading, because I've always been an avid reader. My mom always exposed us to books. So To Kill a Mockingbird's one of my favorite books. Just whatever. I like nonfiction. I like history too, because I am a history buff, so I love history. And so whenever I do get chances to read anything other than just materials preparing for a meeting, I do enjoy reading a good book.
Well, and the reason why I asked you that, like, I am a voracious reader. It's I go through books like water. And it's funny because I'm always trying to help people understand the connection between reading and then just being connected to the world that we're in. And you are someone who's traveled all over the world, but you still read. You know, you're someone who has a position that people might aspire to, but you still find time to read. And it's just so important. Like, no matter what station in life you're in, I feel personally that reading is so important. And I don't know that a lot of people really understand how it expands your mind and how it enables you to connect with people and to think abstractly even. So that's why I asked that question.
No, I'm glad, and I'm very proud of my daughter and her husband, who have 3 children, and they too are avid readers. They're like, Dana, can we go to the library? In fact, my family teases me, as soon as anyone in our family can just scribble their name, they're getting a library club, a library card. So I love reading. I think it is important. It just helps you in so many different ways. And also, I'm a cook, so I love cookbooks. Oh. Yes, I've got cookbooks.
Okay, so let's talk. What kind of cooking do you do? Like, what's your favorite dish to prepare?
Because I'm from Mississippi,
I know it's going to be good.
Oh, yes. Well, it's going to have some cabbage and some cornbread and some smothered pork chops, peach cobbler, German chocolate cake. Right.
Right.
And my famous come in second pound cake. I came in second in a contest with a German chocolate cake, but her German chocolate was really good.
Really?
But my famous, I call it my Aunt BJ pound cake. So I love to cook. So in my spare time, I love being in the kitchen, just preparing meals, having family and friends over. It's one of my favorite things
Your
to do.
constituents, I hope they don't know where you live.
Oh,
You're going to be lined up at the door.
they do. And once a year, I have them all over for our open house. So they are there.
Really?
Yes, yes, yes.
Now that's unusual.
I know, but I do. I live in that type of community where I'm
love
able
it.
to do that. And so I have a group, it's called the Solos, the Seniors of Live Oak. And they always say, Mary, you're an honorary member. So I go have potluck with them. I take a skillet of cornbread or whatever. So, and then I have them to my home. And mom will come over and help me prepare, and people just come and go, and there's plenty of food, and so we just fellowship and have a good time. I'm very, very close, because before COVID, every Saturday I would get out just right around the city. Anyone outdoors, I just stop to say good morning, here's my card. And so it's like I always said that I didn't want people just to see me at election time. Now, not ever knowing I would be here this long, but I always thought that to myself in the very beginning, that I wanted people to see me all the time. So I really try to make a point to let people see me and know who I am. And they have a question on my card, my business card, my phone number's there. People will call. It's like, may I speak to the mayor? And it's like, speaking. They're like, oh my gosh, you answer your own phone. But, I'm able to do that. So I do.
No, that is, I'm sure you know that that's unusual, but in the best way. That's because I think a lot of times when people reach a certain station in life or position, they really don't want to be accessible. And sometimes it's valid, there's a lot that comes with that. But to know that, the people in your community know who you are, they can access you, and the fact that you would have people over for food, I'm like, next time I go visit my mother, I'm gonna say, Mom,
let's go to the mayor's house for dinner.
No, when you were speaking, I told someone recently, we were having a little bit of a debate. You know that book, The 5 Love Languages?
Yes, I do. I have it on my shelf.
I said we need to add a love language. Food is a love language. And he was like, no, food is not a love language. The act of serving someone food is love. I was like, no, the actual food itself.
I totally agree.
Yes.
I think we need to write a book.
Yes, the feeling that you get when you, like the actual visceral, like emotion you have when you know someone has prepared something with love. Even if you don't know who that person is, like you can taste it and you can feel it in the food. I'm like, that that should be added to the.
I totally agree. I think we should do a YouTube channel on that.
Yes, I feel validated now because I've said that to several people and they're like, Kirsten, that's not a thing. I'm like, well, it should be.
It should be, and I really think there is. So I'm with you.
Now, do you? I know you were talking about enjoying foods from other like other types of cuisine. So is there something outside of like the good soul food that you really, really enjoy?
I love a good enchilada. And I make a really good one. But I love Mexican food.
Yeah.
I love Spanish food. The Ethiopian food that you mentioned earlier. Yes, there's a really great restaurant in Houston that serves the best. But and if not, my thing is that try it. I say this to my grandkids, at least experience. If you don't like it, then you don't have to eat it again.
Right.
But you have to open yourself up to things that are outside of your wheelhouse. You have to do that in so many areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for a lot of other things.
Yes,
Like, if you want to at
exactly.
least try a new food, then
That's
you're
it.
probably closed off to other things as well.
And that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. Because you might miss something that that really might make a difference in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure traveling the world, growing up, you got exposed to things as well. So where all have you lived, growing up as a military dependent?
Well, my dad was stationed in Germany a couple of times. So while we were there, we traveled throughout Europe, got a chance to visit Dachau, the concentration camp, which to this day I can remember the smell. And the tour guide, had been in the camp, so he had so much information that he was able to share with us. So we traveled throughout Europe. Back in the States, we were, around the country, mainly in the southern parts, Texas, North Carolina, Mississippi, but throughout Texas several times. And so that's been it. And since now as an adult, I've been able to travel because I love to try to go somewhere at least once a year. So I've been to Spain, I've been to Italy, I've been to France, Naples, Naples and several other Caribbean islands. I love to do a little summer thing, and usually the first part of the year before it gets too busy for me. But I love going places, love seeing the world and experiencing other things.
And it's there for us.
It's there. I need a passport.
And I'm glad you said that, because it is very important for anyone who is able to, if they are able to, get a passport. Because I think, being American, growing up, sometimes we feel like this is it, and that's all there is. And then you start to travel, and you see how people relate differently. You see how they live day-to-day life differently. So I love that people can see an example of someone who not only has, this, secular success, but also takes time to see the world. It's really important to do that.
It is. It is back to my word of balance. You have to have balance in your life. And I think exposing yourself, traveling, seeing, experiencing, you have to be able to do all of those things to be able to be successful in what your purpose is.
Yeah. And I like earlier that you said you make time for naps. Can we talk about this? Because
all the girls that know me, they know I believe in my nap. In fact, my mother-in-law, she would call me and I'd answer the phone. She said, "You haven't had your nap, have you? I'll call you back."
Right.
Because you can tell in my voice. No, I believe in the nap. I think that 20, 30 minutes, I know many people say, "Well, I can't do that because I feel really groggy," but it makes a world of difference for me. So lots of water, get a nap. You will be a better person, and the people around you will appreciate that. Yes, exactly.
That's like me with my snacks. They're like, "Are you hungry? Because you're a little off." I'm like, "Yes, I need something.
I need my snacks, right?"
Yes. But and I've mentioned her on the show before, and I don't know why I always forget her name. But there is a woman that started something that I absolutely adore called the Nap Ministry.
Oh my.
And she basically looked around her environment, and she realized like everyone was stressed, everyone was tired, people were just overwhelmed. And she's like, people are not getting enough rest, because we live in a society that tells you need to be productive 24/7. You don't have any value or worth. And I'm not going to say I know that in our communities, as Black women, sometimes that lands even more because we're saving the world.
Exactly.
And so she started something where she has spaces where people literally come in off the street and take naps. And there's music, there's workshops, there's book readings. She does all sorts of things. But it's interesting that, we actually live in a society where we need permission to take naps now. And it's like, no, we can really do it at home, but you just have to be so intentional about it. I used to think naps were for like my grandmother, and now I will take a nap. It's a power nap, but I will take a nap with a quickness.
No, and I actually learned it from my mother-in-law. Her name was Sammy L. Dennis. And during the war, she was working at Kelly. They were working 12, 14-hour shifts.
Oh, wow.
And she said her supervisor would say, "Lady, when you get home, what do you do?" She says, "Well, I've got 7 kids. I've got to get dinner ready. I've got to help them with homework and do this." She said her supervisor says, "No, you need to go home. Make yourself comfortable for about 30 minutes, take a nap, and then get up and do all the things that you have to do." And so I really, really bought into that, because her skin was beautiful. She was always in a good mood.
Right.
So I I'm always thinking, I want to get where you are. So if you know something that I need to know to get there, I'm going to listen. So I took that into serious advisement. And so that's when I started taking naps. And I still do.
And you got glowing skin too. So you're doing something right.
Thank you.
But that's that, that elder wisdom. It's good that you saw that and learned from her, because there's so much to be gleaned from those conversations and when they're sharing, things that have helped them throughout life. I think sometimes there's a tendency to say, "Oh, well, that just worked for them. I'm not going to do that." But there's a lot that we can learn from our elders.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I've always been around the one who wanted to be around the older people, the older women, because I just felt like they're where I want to be. So they know something that I need to know. So I always would want to listen and hear what they had to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I just heard you say that Mrs. Dennis had 7 children. That's a lot.
Yes.
But I know that you mentioned your daughter, Christina. That's your only child?
Yes, just the one. And she would send me letters, "Dear Mom, I want a brother or sister." I'm like, I would answer her back, go call your cousin,
Right.
But we just had the one child. But I have 3 beautiful grandchildren.
Well, and I was going to ask you, so I have one child as well, and I remember people when he was much younger saying, you can't just have one child. Like, you can't. And it's like, well, I did. Was that something that you were intentional about because you knew that you wanted to do other things? Or was it that's just how the universe aligned and God was like, that's your...
I really wanted to have more children, but my husband did not because he came from a large family, the 7.
He's
and
like,
he
I'm
was
tired.
like, yeah, it's like, no. So I did get to have the one because,
Right.
yeah, he wasn't for any of that. So we just had the one
Right.
child.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And also, I know that being from the South, having those Southern roots, like big families are a thing.
Oh, yes.
So I'm curious, how does your family, and especially, his side of the family, like, how do they process that? Because there's always that pressure.
It is. Because my mom came from a family of 14.
Yep.
So it was, those were large families, but that was typical in that day.
Yes.
In fact, just this July 4th, our cousins got together. It was 150 of us.
Sounds like my
So,
family.
yeah. Having a fish fry,
Yeah.
So, but it was fine, sometimes the pressure, but I remember I was really troubled by it in the very beginning because I married very young. But my mother-in-law she says, you have to respect his, the way he feels about it. So
Right.
after I finally accepted that, I was fine. And so
Right.
my daughter, we just spent a lot of time. We're very, very close even to
Yes.
this day. And so I think I made the best of having that one child. And I'm very proud of the wonderful young woman that I raised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you speak about, every time you've mentioned her name or alluded to her, you're like, you have a little twinkle in your
Oh.
eye. So it's very apparent. Christina, she's proud of you.
Oh, I am. She's my biggest fan and my
Yeah.
biggest supporter. I just so much admire her. That she's such a wonderful young woman living such a great life, raising 3 beautiful adults. She always would say, Mom, I'm not raising 3 kids, I'm raising 3 adults. And she's done an absolutely amazing job with her 3 children, a 22-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 15-year-old.
Wow. Wow. And so what do they call you? Do they call you Grandma, Nana, Gigi? What do they call you?
Well, of course, they had to ask me what did I want to be called.
Yes.
I had a friend. I said, "What are your grandkids going to call you?" She said, "Stephanie." That's my name. I'm like,
Really?
no, I don't want that.
Oh.
No, I'm very comfortable because as a young grandmother, they call me Nana, and
Right.
it's the proudest and best job that I have being Nana.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
And so I know that you travel and you make time to go to different places. I know you said she's in Nashville. Do you go visit Nashville and like participate in, because it's known for like the music scene there.
Right,
So
it is. And now she's actually in Memphis. They've moved to Memphis.
Okay.
Their jobs have taken them there. So they're still in Tennessee. But and yes, we get a lot of time together. I
Yeah.
don't miss a thing. In fact, my birthday last July, I was there with them for my birthday and for Thanksgiving. And they'll be here this year for Christmas.
Right. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And on air, I just wanted to let everyone know that Mayor Dennis had a birthday last week. So happy
Yes.
belated birthday. I know I said it before the show, but I just say people should just celebrate like the whole month.
That's me. That's another thing I learned from my mother-in-law is celebrate the whole month. So I've been
Yes.
doing that. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, birthdays I didn't grow up celebrating holidays because of my parents' religion. And I remember thinking, like, when I'm an adult, I'm really going to celebrate my birthday. Like, I'm going to
think you
celebrate
should.
my
Yes,
birthdays.
yes,
So that's
yes.
like the one big thing. Like, I usually will, like, take myself on a trip or something, but it's important. Like,
It is celebrate the day that you came to this earth, and you ought to make a big deal about it. But I'm
Yes.
like you, I take the whole month,
yes,
though.
yeah, it's important. So I'm going to ask you a question. It's completely random, but you're wearing a pink dress and you're wearing pearls and you look so elegant and ladylike. I'm wondering if you've seen the Barbie movie.
That is too funny. That is too funny. I have not. I have not. In fact, a friend of mine, we're talking about it. We're like, we don't really see what the rave is. I'm sure it's a great movie. I remember playing with my Barbie dolls, like I was telling my story earlier. But I have not seen the Barbie movie.
So it's not something you're really planning to
No,
see.
not at all. This is just the dress that I picked to wear today.
And the reason I asked is because there seems to be, like, people are really divided over it. So some people are saying, like, it's the best movie I've seen this year. It's a wonderful movie about, like, women's empowerment and agency and autonomy. And then other people are like, it's drivel, it's mindless. And I'm like,
I'm sure the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I was just curious because, pink is like a signature color, but I don't plan on seeing it either. I'm not really motivated, but I just thought I would ask. I'm like, I know it's very random.
No, not at all. Not
Okay.
at all. But thank you.
But is that something just in general that you enjoy doing? Like, I know that you like to read. I know that you like to travel. What are some other things that you do just to help, keep that balance? Because you've said, I can tell balance is really important to you. And a lot of women struggle with it. Like, it's really a difficult thing to just stop and carve out time to do things. So, there's the process of giving yourself permission to do it and knowing that you are worthy of it. And then there's a step beyond that and actually going and doing it. So are movies something that you enjoy, or would you rather just read?
I'd rather read or be outside digging in the dirt. Another thing that I learned from my mother-in-law, she was the most amazing woman ever. Digging in the dirt, she always said to me that when you're digging in the dirt, you got your fingers and getting all soil with the soil, that it's something about that connection.
Absolutely.
And so I love being outside in the yard. I love digging in the dirt, my plants. I love my plants. But what you said earlier, the word that you use, I just want to go back to that, intentional, because that's the way you make it work. That's the way that you find the balance. That's the way you find the peace, is that you do have to be intentional. And I think that's the other part of finding your voice, is saying, I need this time, that I'm taking this time. This is the way it's going to be. Everything's going to get done, but I'm also intentional about seeing about myself first.
Right.
And whatever that means to you, doing that. And it's okay. It's okay. Believe me, the world will keep turning. The family will be okay. They'll be just fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you do have to be intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure a lot of people need that reminder. So when you're digging in the soil,
Yes.
are you more of like a floral gardener? Are you growing fruits and veggies? What is you enjoy most?
Both of them. I like going outside to be able to pick up jalapeno off of the plant, or pull some parsley, to make a dish, or to see the flowers blooming. I love both of them. I really enjoy. So just a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's very much, I believe that's deeply embedded in our DNA. Like that's part of who we are as a people. So I'm always trying to sort of convince people to grow something. Like even if you don't have an entire garden, just do some tomatoes. Just tomatoes. You don't have to do anything else, or do a container garden, grow potatoes. Like some things are easy to grow, but there's something that's activated within us. And even from a scientific standpoint, it's that, those electromagnetic currents like in the earth, we need that. And I think that, it's easy to be disconnected in this world because it's just everything is moving so fast. So
Right, exactly. But again, back to being intentional, we need the sun. To help our mental balance. So I think that it's really taking ourselves back to nature in any way that you can. All of those moments are good. Those are good moments.
Absolutely. So I'm curious. So, you've traveled all over the world. You have this beautiful family and you've had many interesting experiences. Is there I hate I don't want to say hate. I don't particularly care for the expression bucket list. But is there like an aspiration or goal that you have for yourself that you really, really like? You're like, I must do this because you are intentional. And I feel like when you say something's going to happen, it's going to happen. So is there a dream that you have that you're very much looking forward to fulfilling?
I appreciate the question, and I've thought about it because I read things about you before I came here trying to prepare myself for this time together. But I really honestly don't. I think that my goal for myself right now is to see my grandchildren raised and see them come into their own, and to be able to be there to support them. Right now, my oldest granddaughter, Sierra, she's at University of Memphis. She's a junior, studying international business and 3 languages. So she's Spanish,
we love a polyglot.
Spanish, French, and Mandarin Chinese. She just recently this summer came from Paris, where she spent a couple of weeks, and then she was back in the States in a totally immersed Chinese program. So I'm really seeing her coming to her own. My grandson, he's also in college. I'm really proud of him. And my 15-year-old, who's the boss of everybody. everybody.
It's always the baby.
Yeah, she's doing really well in making her place in the world. So I think just being there to support them and be able to see and them grow into the great people that I know that they are going to be, that's very exciting to me.
And you have that same twinkle when you were
do
talking
I?
about your daughter.
Yeah.
Yes, that same twinkle, like
Yes,
talking about
I
your grandchildren.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of them. Very
Yes.
proud of them.
And Sierra, wherever you are, I'm impressed because Mandarin is no joke.
That's what I hear.
Woo. Yeah, I have friends who've tried to help me, and I'm just like, that's not my ministry. I can learn other languages, but that's a tough one.
She's very good at to hear her. It was just incredible that she is, and she sounds as if she's been doing this her whole life, which is incredible to me.
Yeah, that is. That's amazing. Wow. No, I have a lot of friends who are polyglots. You know, like everyone's not everyone, but a lot of them are multilingual, and it's again, it's just like food. It's another bridge. It's another way to connect with community. So anytime I feel that, or I hear that people are multilingual, I always have interest there. You know, like what are they doing with it? Or now I'm curious. I know you love Mexican food and Spanish food. Do you speak Spanish by any chance?
No, I
You're
don't.
like, okay.
I wish that I would have taken it in high school, but
Right.
not a word of it.
Right.
I wish that I did.
Right.
No.
But I'm sure that you have people within your administration that do,
Oh, of
because
course.
they were able to translate that information to get out to the community, which is very important. And it also shows that you are, you're mindful. One thing that I'm hearing as I'm talking to you, a recurring theme is that you really do have a heart for others. And that's at the center of your work. And do you remember I know you said when you were 9, you felt something come over, and I don't know if you at all care to speak about like your personal spiritual beliefs at all, but to me that's a spiritual event that happened or an experience. Do you feel that your belief system or your spirituality, or however, I don't know how to frame it because it's so personal, everyone has their own, but do you feel like that has helped you throughout your life and your career as well?
No doubt. My faith is very, very strong because I realize that it's not about me at all, that it's nothing of my own strength, none of my own goodness or anything that I could possibly do, but it's by the mercies of God that I've been able to live this life and experience the great things that I have and to be able to make a difference in this world. Yes, my faith is very important because there have been times when I've had to turn to my faith. I was married for 33 years. I come home one day and my husband has passed away. So during that, it was a very, very difficult time. But I could remember him always saying to me that if your faith is not strong in the time when you are having those most difficult moments, what good is your faith? And I held on to that for many, many, many months, for long into the future, when I had to just kind of encourage myself. And that's something that I learned too from an older woman. She says, Mary, there are going to be people who will pat you on your back and say you're doing a good job and you're doing well. Right. But there will be a time when there's nobody there to pat you on the back. Nobody will say you're doing a good job. So you will have to learn to encourage yourself. And that's something that I've taken with me my whole life, is that sometimes my daughter, she says to me, Mom, is your arm hurting because you're patting yourself on your back so much? I'm like, no, it's not tied yet.
Listen, but and thank you for sharing. I know that's a very personal thing, but anytime I ask a question, it's for a purpose. And I know that, again, for women, it sometimes is a challenge to give ourselves, as people would say, our props, to give ourselves credit, to affirm and encourage ourselves. And different people have different systems or reservoirs that they draw from, and I'm always curious to what it is, for a person. But I had a feeling that was something, because I just feel it. I feel like that was something very strong within you. And it's also important, I think, for people to understand and to know that you can have something that is devastating, for lack of a better word, happen in your life, but you can go on. It may not be easy, but you can get over and get through. Well, not over, that's not the right word, but you can get through it.
You can get through it. And
Exactly.
I think that it's very important to say that, because I remember my grandmother had come up after the funeral, and she was sitting there in the den. I was in the kitchen, and she said, baby, come here, sit on the sofa. And I sat next to her. She says, you have two choices. She says, you can sit here and die, or you can get up and flap your wings. I got up, walked back to the kitchen, my eyes full of tears, not really knowing exactly what she said to me. But what I did say and make a choice that day was that I was going to flap my wings, not knowing what that meant or how that was going to happen, because I felt very bruised, very hurt, very broken. But I went back to the kitchen saying, I'm going to flap my wings. So from that moment on, through all of the difficult moments that I had to go through, I have been trying to flap my wings since that moment, because she says you have two choices, so you choose, and that's the way it is for all of us in life. We have a choice. So do you choose good? Do you choose bad? Do you choose to live? Do you choose to die?
Right.
So that's a choice that we get to make, I believe, every day.
Every
day you get to choose. Today I'll be happy, or today I'll be sad. Today I'll look at it a positive way, or I'll look at it in a negative light. I'll have a good attitude, or I'll have a bad attitude, but every day you get to make that choice.
Absolutely.
So I say choose life.
Absolutely. Every day, and have gratitude.
And yes, it's so very important. Yes.
I have a friend that teases me because I'm annoyingly positive.
I get that.
And I knew you would. And, you know, I feel very much the same way. Like, sometimes we do go through things that are really, those things could end us as well. But it's like, what do you do with the moment? What do you do with the present and the now? You know, that's really all we have. We have right now. We don't know. Okay, thank you. You know, nothing is really guaranteed. So when we're faced with what we have now, like, just make the most of it. Just make the absolute best of it as you can.
Well, you won't get anything other than an amen from me, because in my professional life, I am a licensed mortician. And I say to people all the time that when you're back there on that table and we're about to do what we have to do, it's over on this side. So every day is important. Every second is important. So enjoy it. Make the best of it. If you have a flat tire, call AAA, get it fixed, and keep going. Right. So whatever it is, try to make the best of it, but don't give up hope. Don't take the downside. Take the upside. And that way you can just keep moving. And maybe it's hard, but you can do it, because like you said earlier, somebody is watching.
Always.
So I think that that's something always that we have to remind ourselves of each day.
Well, I just got a message from our producer that we have 5 minutes. And so I think I would like to ask you, so, you know, you were elected in 2010, and we're now at 2023. So that's a long term. Do you have for yourself a time frame where you've said, you know what, I want to do this until this date? Or do you just want to ride it till the wheels fall off, and until, you know, do you have and I don't even know if that's an appropriate question now that I'm asking about.
No, not at all. People ask me all the time. No, and my life has been of such that my path has always been very laid out for me. So I'm confident. I can't see around the corner. I can't see over the hill, but I'm confident that my life is guided and directed by God. So I know that without a doubt. So wherever that is, I'm fine. If it's to continue in this path, I'm fine. If it's to continue to go in another path, I'm fine. Because whatever path it is good. So I'm confident of that. So that is my answer, that wherever God takes me, as long as I'm following him, then I know that place is a good place.
Right. Well, and that's the perfect way to end the show. I just want to say, and I know you not only had 2 things this morning, then you came here. I know you have somewhere else to be. So I just want to reiterate that I have so much gratitude. Thank you for even returning my email and phone call, not knowing who I was. But now that I've met you and we're talking, I see why you were not reluctant to, you know, to return my correspondence. So thank you for making time to be here and sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. And I'm sure I'm going to go home and be like, darn, I should have asked her this or that, but it's okay.
Remember, my cell number's on my card. You can call me.
Yes. So thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for tuning in today. Again, this is Mayor Mary Dennis of the City of Live Oak. And also, because I have not been here in the studio in about 3 months, I want to ask everyone just to take a minute to follow VodPod Media. We're working really hard to bring you quality content, things that really matter, things that are enjoyable. We don't do a lot of gossip and sensational. I mean, there's a place for that. It's just not here. And so please just take a moment to like us and follow us so that we can continue to provide all of this wonderful content for you. And again, I'm Kirsten Thompson. This is VodPod Media, More Than Magic, and we are signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.